Okay, welcome back to episode 14 of my Age of Wonders 3 challenge series, specifically the 2-unit challenge, where I just had my starting leader, a Dwarf Warlord, and the first hero to offer to join, who happened to be a Dwarf Rogue. Only these 2 units I was able to keep and use for military battle throughout the entire game. I disbanded all my other starting units and never acquired any additional military units through summoning or rewards or other stuff. And if something was like that was forced upon me, I immediately disbanded them so that only these 2 people were doing the battle. So as you can see, it's turn 51. Last time we checked in the last episode, it was turn 43. So it did take some time for me to locate the leader for this final AI person, so this dwarf theocrat. I was able to locate the leader out over here. I'll pull up the battle list and we'll see exactly where it was. And then I hightailed it back here to the capital to take it out to win the game. I didn't even, let's see, look at the static shield. Ooh, flame resistance. Neat. So, because this is the final episode, we'll do some key recap stuff as well. So it will be a little longer, and we'll talk about where the heroes are at, item forging decisions over time, movement over time, etc. But first, let's see how this all came out. So, yeah, so they lost here, and as when I took the capital, it was only being guarded by a single shrine. Let's look at the last few, capturing some of my watchtowers. Come back here. Okay, yeah, so for this battle, had their Bren, their leader, as well as a few other heroes, some of these units, and some of these units. We can jump into watching this. So you can see how this went. This is probably a good time to review. Oh, so slow. Oh God, why is it making me move so slow? This is a good time to review how my heroes are kitted out at this point. So you can see for my Dwarf Rogue that I had Sprint, Assassin Strike, Shadow Step, Phase from an item, Curse from an item, Heal from an item, and Nourishing Meal for an item. Happiness was excellent by default. In terms of spells, I took a level so I could get additional casting points, and so I could get Shadow Form as a castable. Over here, you can see that on my Dwarf Warlord, I used Last Stand a lot, Lion's Courage some, Stoning a bit, especially early on. Rarely used Berserk. Stone Skin a few times. Mass Bless a few times, Phoenix Warrior a few times, including some really clutch times. And I never had to use Steadfast Ward, Slower Killing Spree, but had things gone differently, maybe I would have. So let's look more at her. So 100 HP, 21 defense, and 17 resistance by default. So these are the standard lifesteal weapons. You know, you put Life Drain on there, and then usually like a Monster Slayer on there. And then when you're dealing with undead or incorporeal or machines, that's when you want something like this. So lots of shock damage for the machines, and because very few things are resistant to shock, and then Demolisher on top of that. So doing a lot of melee damage to machines. So I would swap these in for certain machine focused battles. I picked up this nice harp for giving additional morale to everybody present on the battlefield, even when you're not leading the army, which is nice. I had this Inflict Dazzle necklace on there, which if you're facing a lot of incoming damage all at once can be useful, but because I was able to grind, I was able to have enough defense and grind people with Tireless. This wasn't essential. This, I wanted a little bit more fire and shock protection, given that I was up against some Shrines of Smiting. This for some fire protection and the ability to fly. This for additional hit points. This Wizard's Hat came in handy for the phase ability and some additional resistance, primarily. This was just to give some heal. This was some alternative heal plus some happiness buff. This was if I thought it would be better to have this for dealing with certain machines or dissuade them from distance attacking, I would use that instead of this. I had floating boots for those occasions when I needed it, some ranged options, some regeneration stuff that I would swap on here if I had just death marched and I needed them to regain some hit points, and this for some additional fire and shock protection if I really needed to stack that. Let's see, we talked about a lot of this. So backstab and inflict crippling wounds upgrade, first strike upgrade, projectile resistance upgrade, free movement, total awareness upgrade, armor piercing, undead slayer upgrade from the Blood Brothers, that happiness from the draft. Thoroughbred Months is amazing for this challenge. The plus 15 health helped me get up to that. Have a few hearts as it happens. Armored from this to further boost. That's from the harp. Monster Slayer from the weapon. Inflict dazzled from this ability. Tireless from the boots. 20% from the 20% physical protection from the Warlord leader. Some blight, some frost, decent fire, total spirit, and a little bit of shock. And I could bump some of these numbers up with something like this if I needed it. So that's where the Dwarf Rogue was at. And over here, you know, the two healing abilities, some ranged Warcry upgrade. Talked about spells already, up to 90 casting points at this point. Talked about Warcry. So similarly, we've got lifesteal. We've got this for shield, projectile resistance, and most importantly, defender to help boost these. So natively 24 and 20 without any spells cast, which is pretty strong. Some resistance and blight protection. Flying. Already has tireless as an upgrade, so one with floating boots. I could put this on here and still be able to float around with this. So plus hit points and armor, some plus defense and resistance. And then again, could swap out with that, could swap these in as needed if I need those channels of protection. Same there. Regenerate all hit points is good for the death march. And then this alternative healing item is a little bit better. And then this if I needed more blight protection. So pretty good suite of things. You can see capped out at 15 was pretty early on. Life Drain Armored. Martial Arts upgrade. Defense upgrade. Tireless upgrade. Blood Brothers upgrade. Toughness upgrade. Melee Command upgrade. Armor Piercing upgrade. Overwhelm upgrade. These are all familiar. Defender from the shield. Shield from the shield. Projectile resistance from the shield. Vision range upgrade. Dependent. Floating and flying. And then similar, a little bit higher blight, a little bit lower fire protection compared to the other guy. So that's where they are at. So you can see how we handle this. I'll slow it down when the action gets good. So I'm deciding to put my rogue out front, primarily because of the total awareness. So if I want to attack with her, she still won't take massive flank damage. So plenty of lifesteal there. So it's back up to 100 HP. Gave Mass Bless. Now ported her back here to get up in these heroes' faces. Doing some chip damage to me. So again, they're doing like 3 damage a hit, and I'm lifestealing that back. Gone. 30 and 23. Right, just gone. 27, doing 1 or 2 damage, healing it right back. Leader's gone, so now people are less likely to be disjuncting stuff. So I come back over here and get in their face. Big damage, and dazzled as well. So I take a little damage just to get up in ranged units' faces. This heals. Easy. Easy. And the first strike means that they take damage first, which oftentimes dissuades them. So, yeah, doing nothing. Health is staying at full. Boom. Just staying planted there, letting them throw themselves up against me while I... A lot of lucky and a lot of rezzing. Just keep knocking them down. Big damage. Boom. So that's how that went. So that was the leader down. And then as I showed you before, I took the capital. This is where they were taking out little units. Yep. So I think I faced shrines here and there throughout the game, but they were never in huge numbers. Taking out some of that. So yeah, I think that's the extent. So I had killed leaders out here, came back to the headquarters here, to the capital, and took them out here. So what else do we need to talk about? What was I working on? Just more warfare stuff. The rest of the stuff is not essential. I used Death March a bunch in the mid to late game. I used Transform Earth Node a fair amount early on to help boost the research and mana. Once I had enough mana to give myself plenty of cushion for casting. I used Dread Siege maybe once or twice. Had they presented me with tougher siege battles, I would have used it more. This I never needed. This I never needed. This is up and was useful. I talked about these already. And with these, several units of warfare, I meant to go into basic, into advanced, and then advanced logistics. I never prioritized that. I probably should have once getting some other stuff, but so let's see. Yeah, Master Cartographer essential. Thoroughbred mounts was amazing. Warfare levels were helpful for spell casting. But otherwise not a ton of stuff needed to research. But yeah, advanced logistics would have been helpful. Though I was on the roads a fair bit, but I also did plenty of off-roading. So it's good that I had floating and then flying available. So to recap, I started down here and I did minor battles in this area just against like three unit battles, simple tier 1, tier 2 battles, until I got enough strength that I was able to withstand some trickier battles. And once I got the lifesteal and tireless items on my heroes, then I was able to take on a lot spicier battles. I had some clutch, like early clearing stuff that was captured on prior episodes, so check those out in terms of clearing tombs and libraries and wizard tower and stuff like that. They're pretty fun to do. And the priority here was I picked up Shrine, but otherwise I went for Item Forge as fast as possible. Builder's Hall and Siege Workshop for a little bit more productivity, but Item Forge was the goal, and I forged a ton of items and kept a builder at home to be able to mail them out to my heroes on the front lines. That was the big thing, is I knew to let these guys survive, I needed to have a lot of forged stuff. So again, for sense comparison, this was forged, these were forged, this was forged, this was forged. And then over here, this was forged, so was that, 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 so was that. and this, and this, and this. So I was very active with forging, and I would rush build every single time. So I would forge an item, and then why is it? Oh yeah, because I won the game, and then I would rush it every single time. So I was always rushing productivity, and I had enough mana to be able to be spending 250 to 350 once I had got things going. I wasn't able to rush the first few on occasion because I needed more mana, but then money was really never a problem because I don't have troops, so upkeep is super low. And even though I only had one city and like a vassal here, I did have a bunch of builders creating fortresses to help pull in additional mana and some gold and some research. So it worked out really well, and I was able to clear spawning structures, creep spawning structures, so that nobody would take over my defenseless capital, and I was never going to have any other defenseless joined my empire stuff. They were always going to have to be vassaled because they needed to be able to defend themselves against roaming bands. I was building a lot of builders to follow my troops this way, and my movement was like this, 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 went underground, took out a capital, came down this way, took out a capital, took out a capital, went up here, took out a capital, went underground, killed the hero, came over here, saw the capital, came over here, found the last leader, killed the leader, came back, killed the capital. So that was my movement basically in that counterclockwise direction. Never explored up here. Master Cartographer has been absolutely amazing to be able to plan efficient movement. And as you can see, let's see what stuff is interesting to see. So I had heroic skill. In turn 25, I got my heroes to level 15. Turn 27, I hit primeval. Of course, I had to disband those 3 free evil units they gave me. And Master Smith, I smithed my first item by turn 12, right? Because I knew that was a priority. Over here, you can see my race happiness stuff. So very little vassal stuff, and I even raised a few occupied cities that happened to be dwarf, and so that kind of compromised things. But again, I was never going to, none of this was going to be essential to me. I think this, all of your armored dwarven units, had I gotten to this, which would take forever, and I don't have a lot of cities, so it would really take forever before I got to this level, but this sort of stuff would have been neat because both of my leader and my joined hero were dwarven, and they both had the armored quality because of items and stuff like that. So they would have benefited from this, which would have been cool, but didn't even need it. Would have come late in the game. Yeah, only my capital and one vassal. See the stats on them, and you can see all the builders I had out and my 2 military units, which I talked about, and draft is the only thing I had up. Oh, goodness. What else? Is there anything else that we missed that we need to talk about? I don't think so. So it's victory, versus 5 allied Emperor level AI opponents in turn 51, thanks to efficient movement from Master Cartographer. And then let's see, that was one of the capitals. So let's check this out. So for score, I am red, so you can see my score was low throughout, just because I only had 2 military units and I was very targeted with what I was doing. And we can see where the different folks were. Knowledge score, makes sense. This is where I think I took over Lost City or something like that and got a nice little bump. Happiness, military, always very low. And domain. It's funny, the big jump that the 2 of them took. Yeah, so thanks for watching this challenge series. I don't know where I go from here because I mean, only using 2 military units is really intense, and it worked out just fine, interestingly. And part of that is because I moved so efficiently and quickly to get up in the AI's faces that caught them on their back heels when they were still mostly in their territory, with the exception of the Theocrat. So that goes a long way from stopping them from building up a lot of momentum and being a lot harder, because I wasn't having to face like full stack, like 3 full stacks of 18 total units with like a bunch of machines or shrines mixed in, right? That sort of stuff is what I was fearing. I was fearing that because whereas I can lifesteal tireless churn through waves and waves of flesh units, if I had to deal with a lot of incorporeals or a lot of undead, or a lot of machines that could do big enough damage to pierce through my high defense and resistant heroes, I was really trying to build up resistances to those things that would give me trouble, like the shock, fire, and spirit for going up against Theocrats, and the fire and physical for dealing with dreadnoughts and stuff like that. But it worked out because I worked quickly. But had this game dragged on, it would have been a lot harder because I would have faced people who would just throw so much tier 5 machine based damage at me that it would cut through that defense, and I wouldn't be able to heal efficiently. So yeah, so I don't know what I'll do for a challenge next, but you haven't checked out my prior challenge series, please do. I've done variations of this 2-unit challenge, like I did a week starting army only challenge, heroes only challenge, and then probably my most challenging to date was the 40 turn head start challenge, where I sat in my base for the first 40 turns and did nothing while the AI gathered steam. And that was definitely the most difficult challenge I've ever faced, because they were knocking on my door with three stacks, 4 stacks of high tier units, and with a lot of difficult spells. So that took me a long time, and that was one where I actually recorded every single action. So it's like 80 videos long or something ridiculous. Whereas these are more like catch-up videos. But hopefully this was interesting. Think about subscribing if you want to see more Age of Wonders 3 content from me. And thanks for your time.